Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class if you've not been watching my videos. I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Oh, that's hot. Just how I like it. Good morning, everybody. Today, the newspapers, and today is the Tuesday, the 1st of July, and Nationwide has put out its monthly, in very heavy inverted commas, house price index, and it's reported a monthly drop of 0.8% between May and June. Okay, no big shakes one way or the other. But the media has lost its collective mind over this, and all the headlines are screaming about it. And let me explain why that's strange. Because only last week, when the ONS released its house price data, it revealed a much larger drop month on month of 2.8%, as opposed to 0.8% from today's Nationwide. But last month, nobody reported that. So here we have today's headlines on, so The Guardian, UK house prices fall by most in more than 2 years. Reuters, UK house prices fall by most since November 2022, Nationwide data shows. LBC, house prices fall unexpectedly after Rachel Reeves' stamp duty tax raid. No, the tax raid made this was entirely expected. Builders hit after stamp duty raid triggers house price fall, the Telegraph says. Yahoo, UK house prices fall in June after stamp holiday ends. Stamp duty holiday. LBC, Telegraph, investing. Financial Times, UK house prices clock biggest monthly fall in 2 years. Oh God, it all sounds very crashy, doesn't it? So are house prices actually crashing? If both the ONS and Nationwide says it, and even Rightmove said asking prices are coming down. They're all saying house prices are coming down. Is this the start of a house price crash? Well, first of all, the most important thing to understand, and I'm going to talk about these figures here. These are all ONS figures. In fact, I need to just update that caption and make it very, very clear that's what it is. All right? ONS figs. There we go. ONS. Because I do this for a living and I find it confusing, right? What's actually happening? Even if we accept that at a national level, national average house price figures don't tell us anything about our individual move. But they're all we've got to go on to understand what's happened in the housing market. And the reason I think this is important to talk about today is because whether or not house prices do crash, if buyers and first-time buyers think that they might, and if the news starts to report the recession that I think is going to be coming very soon in the official figures, then that becomes a self-perpetuating thing as buyers hold back, which I don't think they should, even if house prices are coming down. But most buyers don't pay any attention to me, and most buyers will overpay when they shouldn't, and then will not buy when they should. Most buyers don't do what the most sensible thing is. And so what does that mean for the whole of the market? Well, it's different for everyone depending on who you are, whether you're a first-time buyer or just selling or upsizing or downsizing. And it depends whether you're in the south or the north or London or Northern Ireland or Scotland. It's all different. And in this video, which shouldn't be very long, I've said that before, haven't I? Shouldn't be very long. I want to try and give you a few answers so that you will do a couple of things. Number one, you will ignore all of the national house price news, whether it's saying up or down, because that shouldn't affect your decision to buy a home. Okay? If you were investing in property, it might affect it, but national house price figures, whether up or down, shouldn't influence your decision to buy a home. Okay? Let's go back to when house prices were going off the charts and national house price figures are going, oh, house prices are jumping up at 10% a year. What did that mean? It meant that all those buyers went and overpaid. You shouldn't have paid attention to the house price growth numbers. But of course, agents and everyone else used it to fearmonger everyone into buying, because if you don't buy, you'll miss out. And what happened to everyone who bought in 2022? Well, you're counting the cost a bit now, aren't you? Now, I'm not excited about this. I am a little bit stimulated by the fact that the ONS's own numbers undermine its own headlines. These three numbers below, and I'm going to put it on screen as well, just to make sure we share this, right? So first and foremost, that's right, yes, first and foremost, this time last year, and I've got it right here, this time last year, the ONS reported, there it is, right? There it is. I'll scroll to the top so you can see it's the actual one, right? This was released in June 2024. There it is. Okay. And these are prices for April 2024. 281,000 was the average UK house price in the 12 months to April 24, 281,000. Okay, that was a year ago. Now we've been told that the ONS has told us that house prices have gone up, right? Didn't they say they've gone up by 3 or 6% or something? They've said both of those things in the last 2 months. But when we look at today or last week's announcement, the price says 265,000. Now, my maths might not be brilliant, but I'm pretty sure that 265,000 is about £16,000 lower than the price they announced a year ago. Right? You can look this up for yourself. Don't take my word for it. And yes, the ONS very quietly announced some changes to how they measure house price figures that might explain some of this. But then look at the next point, which is last month, a month ago, in March, they announced house prices were £271,000, as I've put down below there, right? And this is the point I'm coming to about the ONS and the news, right? This was last month. There we are. Average UK house prices increased by 6%. No, because they were 10 grand more than that a year ago, according to your own numbers. But no, they increased. Don't worry about that. Just trust the headlines. Trust the headlines. House prices increased by 6% to 271,000. So that's March. That's 1 month ago. And then this month, prices are 265,000. So there they are, showing a £6,000 drop in 1 month, or a 2.8% drop in 1 month by the ONS, just last month. Okay. And the weird thing is that no one in the media reported this. I think maybe the Financial Times did, but there was just all the rest of them reported the 3.5% increase you can see on the screen there. Those were the headlines last week. 3.5%. Average house prices increased by 3.5%. And all the headlines reported that, even though there was a much bigger house price fall than's being reported today. The house price fall last week announced by the ONS was more than 3 times bigger month to month in drop than Nationwide's. Okay, here we have Nationwide's figures, and they are showing, you can see it in the center of the screen there, a minus 0.8% fall in price in the monthly change. Okay, minus 0.8%. And that's led to all of the newspapers going, oh, why didn't they? I can only conclude that these journalists are stretched for time and are simply grabbing whatever the headline seems to be the easiest to make. Okay? That's point number one. Why are they making a song and dance about a 0.8% drop this month when only a week ago the ONS published a 2.8% drop and no one talked about it? There's just no rhyme or reason to it. And then the other point is, why are they all saying it was unexpected? It was not unexpected by anyone who understands how stamp duty and house prices and taxes work. It wasn't unexpected at all. Now, I want to show you another couple of discrepancies with the house price data. So here we've got, so Northern Ireland does seem to have the strongest house price growth anywhere at the moment, right? And they are saying that in Northern Ireland, annual house prices went up 9.7%. Okay, let's just remember, I did a live stream just last night, and Zoopla, they say that Northern Ireland's increase was 6.3%. That's a very, very big difference, right? 6% up in a year versus nearly 10% up in a year. And my point here is, don't trust any of these house price indices in terms of what's actually happening. Because even with these regional breakdowns, they aren't breaking down by property type. And in one region, different property types, some will be going up, some will be going down. As in London, we know North London, flats in the North London postcode area have been going up on average by more than 5% in the last year. All other property types in North London down between 10 and 15%. So that's a 15 to 20% difference in the changes in house prices between the biggest increases and the biggest decreases in one area based on property type. Okay, so disregard all of that. But let's get to this point about whether or not are house prices crashing. So, the only people who really want house prices to crash are first-time buyers. Nobody else wants house prices to crash. But first-time buyers are more than 50% of all transactions. So when the more than 50% of all buyers want house prices to crash, they also don't want them to crash because they want them to crash so they can buy, and then they don't want them to crash after that, right? So they're utterly duplicitous bunch of first-time buyers. House price crash, great, we can afford a house. No, house price crash now. No, we don't want one now. We don't want one now. 2 points from the point of view of first-time buyers. First of all, the changes in first-time buyer prices will vary around the country and will vary depending on whether you're buying a flat or buying a house. There will be differences in the price movements in the coming 12, 24 months, depending on your region and the property type you're buying. Whatever price falls may or may not occur with first-time buyer properties in the next year or two, they are likely to be the smallest falls if there's a house price crash, if there is what the media wants to call a house price crash. And by the way, I think in 2026, you may see some headlines talking about one as actually happening. The problem is that, well, that does two things. First of all, it scares people off buying. Secondly, it actually brings out the bargain hunters. So it has a mixed effect on it. And by the time it's reported, by the way, if there is one, by the time it's reported, it's already happened. It's too late. it's too late. You have missed the bottom, if you like, once they report a house price crash because of the delays in how slow the property market works and in the reporting. If there is a house price crash, it's most likely to affect downsizers and people selling larger or top-end price properties. And it could be argued that, in fact, there already has been a house price crash for certain property types in certain locations, right? Especially at the very high property prices end. And in parts of the country where detached house prices have now dropped 15 to 20%, right? There's no widespread reporting of it because it's localized, but it already has happened. So the question is it going to get worse or better from here? Are house prices going to fall faster or not from here? Is it all just media guff and scaremongering? Because that's what a lot of people tell you. Oh, it's just the media scaremongering. Ignore them. Come on and overpay for your home. And you shouldn't believe any of them either way, because you should only pay attention to your precise market. I think that looking at first-time buyers as a whole, what's going to happen as economic news continues to get worse, okay, because it is going to continue to get worse. GDP figures are going to get worse, in my opinion. Unemployment figures are going to get worse, in my opinion, because we haven't yet seen the full effects of the national insurance increase. We've got the hospitality sector talking about shutting down 40% of their businesses if the government doesn't come with a rescue package of some kind by the autumn. I see this country's economic prospect and our prosperity prospects just getting worse and worse and worse. And as the headlines, because the papers will only ever report what's happened, not what's going to happen, as the headlines start to reflect this increasingly bad economic conditions, as the effects of the stamp duty increase in April start to bite more on house prices, I think we will see more of these falls reported. Because don't forget, Rightmove in June reported a drop in asking prices when normally they go up. That's a leading indicator. So all of the indicators are pointing in a negative direction for house prices overall. That does not mean that all house prices are going to go down. There are certain areas where there's a lot of competition for affordable homes, and you're less likely to see, especially in the north of the country, you're less likely to see price falls up there. So my position is still slide, yes. Slide getting steeper, yes. Crash. The chances of it are increasing, but I still don't think there's going to be a crash. And even when you look back at previous crashes, apart from the sudden one of a financial crisis, they weren't crashes, they were slides. They happened in slow motion, and people didn't realize until after the event. Okay. Are we in what will be looked back upon as a house price downturn? I think yes. I think yes. And I think 2026 is probably going to be when we start to see it being reported in its full effect. And I think between now and then, things are going to weaken. Now, we had the Nationwide guy saying that they're expecting the summer activity to pick up, but only 24 hours earlier, Zoopla guy saying we're expecting the traditional summer slowdown. Which is it? Which is it? It can't be both. Why is Zoopla saying that there's going to be a summer slowdown and Nationwide saying that there's going to be a summer pickup? Well, of the two, I trust Zoopla's judgment more. Now, it's not because there aren't plenty of people who want to move house, and as ever, it's transaction volumes that matter. Which reminds me, something else I needed to point out. Just yesterday, HMRC published housing transaction data, and this is not encouraging. Let me just get the line up. Here we are. Right, let's share the screen. So if you try and work out what's happening, because this also goes against the reports we had from Zoopla about activity picking up. HMRC's transactions. So this was just published a couple of days ago. It's HMRC's monthly property transactions commentary. It's a few days old, and it talks about the volume of transactions, and it's all UK residential transactions for £40,000 or higher. And what you can see there is that in May 2025, it was 13% lower than May 2024. Okay. Now, yes, it was just 42% higher than April. People go, oh my, that's a massive bounce. But that was simply, April was very low because of the stamp duty shenanigans. Okay. There was a big spike. If you go and look at the graph, you can see this wild spike up and this wild spike down. So the tip of that spike was March, which was people trying to beat the stamp duty deadline. Thanks, Rachel Reeves, for that. And then April was a corresponding dip because all the conveyancers have basically taken the month off in April. But you would expect it to get back to normal by now. And we are, I mean, who knows what will happen next month? We are 13% lower than a year ago. Now, if that picks up for, what's that for? That's for May. If that picks up for June, that's good news. And I hope it does. I really do hope it does. But at the moment, we're 13% down on last year. So let's see if it picks up or not next month. But when we look at... yes, Kicking Mustang points out, I expect all falls to be unexpected. And Mark Tabbert on X did a brilliant cartoon about that. UK media. All house price falls are always unexpected. That's true. First of all, if you can buy a home and want to buy a home and aren't planning on moving in the next at least 5 years, and you're a first-time buyer, then you should go ahead and buy a home because you want somewhere to live, right? And the prices might come down a little bit over the next couple of years. That's not a reason not to buy a home if your reason for buying a home is because you want to live in it. Okay. If your reason for buying a home is as an investment, then maybe now isn't a great time to buy it as an investment, because even with the house prices they're trying to report, they can't even keep up with inflation. If you're upsizing, it's a good time for upsizers. You might want to factor in larger price falls for the house you're upsizing to, just to be on the safe side. Because as I always say, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And in preparing for the worst, consider the worst case scenario, right? You upsize, you pay for a house, you think you got a good price on it, but actually the price then falls another 10% in the next 2 years. Is that okay with you? Do you still want to upsize? Then go ahead and upsize. That's the point. If you are prepared for the worst case scenario, you should proceed. But if you're not, then you shouldn't. And then prepare on the worst case scenario basis, but hope for the best. Kicking Mustang says, without forced sellers, there can't be a crash. Is unemployment coming? If the answer is yes, then a crash will happen. Right. So that is this is kind of what happened in the 80s and 90s recession. There was a spike in unemployment. And Housing Stig has said he's expecting a spike in unemployment too. And it has taken a lot longer than he thought or than I thought, but we are beginning to see the signs of unemployment climbing. There's been 250,000 fewer payroll jobs since the Labour government came to power. It does seem to be playing out quite slowly, but I think it's going to accelerate. Tim Treefrog says, hi, Charlie. Question re-falls. I'm a first-time buyer, had offer accepted at full asking price at the end of February. Seller has dragged heels. Still awaiting his inquiry replies. Zupa says 5% slide in value since. What can I do? You can decide whether or not you want to renegotiate with the seller. If you try and renegotiate, You may lose the deal, but you may also get it. You got to find out why. If the seller's dragging their heels, you might not be buying it anyway. So I'd find out why they're dragging their heels. Jason Lung says, just this year alone, there have been 120,000 job losses with more on the way. I think it's just in 2 months there have been that many. Matthew Haynes points out something which I don't think enough people take into account, which is, hi, Charlie, been waiting years for this moment to upsize, but we are now also facing the disproportionate increases in the costs associated with owning the larger properties. Correct. And that's what a lot of buyers of larger properties are feeling, which is why larger property prices are falling faster than any others. Just checking for other questions here. Not many. Oh, Matthew Haynes, long-time follower, first-time commenter. Welcome. Thank you for your comment. Here is the other big factor that didn't exist in previous housing market downturns. There is a new technology threat to large-scale employment at white-collar level. White-collar jobs are the ones most at risk from machine learning and large language models and artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it. In the same way that factory automation and robots wiped out jobs for blue-collar workers, white-collar workers are now facing the same thing as software has come along to take over a lot of their jobs. And that trend, do you think that trend's going to increase or decrease? And so unusually, with this particular employment recession that I think we're beginning, is that it's going to be higher paid jobs more than lower paid jobs being lost, potentially. Chris Walmsley also says AI is going to cause huge job losses. I want to also, I got a message. I'm going to play this to you. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but it was from an agent. Listen to this.
Hi Charlie, I hope you're well. I just thought I'd send you a message because I'm having a discussion with one of my vendors today. They haven't had many inquiries on their property, and whilst it's in line with market value, it's clearly not in line with buyer value.
Whilst it's in line with market value, it's clearly not in line with buyer value. Now, spot the problem with that point of view. This is a relatively new agent who started out on her own as a self-employed agent. And that line gives away so much about the mentality of agents, which is that she's just said that market value and buyer value are two different things, but they're not, are they? Buyers' values are the market value because you can't get more than what buyers will pay. And so if what buyers will pay is the market value, then the market value can't be higher than what buyers will pay. But within the estate agency community, there is this, it's like a brainwashed cult of dyed-in-the-wool belief of what market value is. And I see all the time agents persuading themselves of their valuations because they are so tied. And this is what needs to happen in the housing market, which will unlock transactions and will also, I think, minimize price falls. Not that I'm saying I want that to happen or don't want to happen. I think it would reduce price falls. If more sellers and agents understood that the market price for a house is only what buyers can pay for it and what buyers will pay for it, there can be no other value. What you think it's worth, what your seller thinks it's worth, are completely irrelevant and pointless red herrings. that don't matter about anything, right? What buyers will pay is the market value. There are no exceptions to that. What buyers will pay is the market value. And that agent, you very clearly just heard it, play the rest of the message.
And I am wondering how I would go about the no value conversation if I've already put a value on it. Is that too late?
Yes, that's too late, right? So the question I'm being asked is, this agent has seen my videos of what I've been doing with Carringtons on the no valuation approach, where they're winning lots of instructions and selling them all within 3 weeks with multiple bids. So in other words, they're getting market price within 3 weeks by not giving a valuation. And this agent's asking me, I'm going to go and talk to the seller because no one's inquiring about it. And I've got to basically say, oh, let's go to the no valuation approach, but I've given a market valuation. And the problem is the agency industry is served by a bunch of data companies that tell agents what they want to hear. Here's evidence to support your over-optimistic valuation. And you can hear in that voice, there's this cognitive dissonance. But I've given the market value, but it's not the same as the buyer's value. No, then it's not market value. And so this is a culture we've got to try and crack, because otherwise we're going to get into a stagnant market. And as those HMRC figures show, May, we are 13% down on transaction volumes from last May. That's terrible news. I am hoping, fingers crossed, that Zoopla saying that in June transactions were up 6% on this time last year means that actually those HMRC transaction volumes will pick up in June and hopefully continue to increase. But until sellers and agents stop overpricing homes, transactions cannot increase. I'll say it again. Until agents and sellers stop overpricing homes, transaction volumes cannot increase. It's not that buyers don't want to buy homes. They do. There is a massive pent-up demand from literally millions of buyers. I've got the data from Zoopla. The boss of Zoopla Data sent it to me saying, here you are, here's the data. Literally millions of people who would buy if they could afford to buy. It is only the price is stopping them. And if as a seller and as an agent, you accept that you cannot sell a property for more than buyers will pay, than the market will pay, then hopefully you'll begin to understand that you've got to stop overpricing. And you've got to stop sellers overpricing. And you've got to stop saying things like test the market, and stop saying things like fly a kite, and stop saying things like we'll drop it after a couple of weeks if we get no inquiries, because you're immediately putting yourself into the buyer's not interested basket. If you don't get that launch price right first time, and the evidence of that is, do you have at least a dozen viewings within the first 2 weeks? You're not going to sell quickly, and you're not going to sell, and transaction volumes aren't going to pick up. Mark Stephen Graham, who's an agent, says, your home is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. That's the mantra. It's what someone is willing and able to pay for it, is anything I would add. Kicking Mustang. Cool, you're getting lots of quotes today, but this is a good point on jobs. And I wanted to point something out. Driving jobs are the #1 employer in the world. And as of the last 2 weeks, we've now seen for the first time ordinary cars on the streets of Austin, Texas, giving full self-driving taxi rides, Uber rides, right? Robo-taxis with no driver and without the stupid cameras on the top with spinning stuff and lots of weird external paraphernalia. Just ordinary cars picking people up, taking them from A to B. 100% automated. That time has now arrived. That Rubicon has been crossed. We will not be going back. And this is, it's effectively, it's AI on wheels, isn't it? Taking over drivers' jobs. And eventually that will come to Europe. And the reason it is an unstoppable force that's going to create huge amounts of job losses is because it is cheaper and safer than a human. Whatever you might think, these things don't get tired. And whatever stories you want to tell yourself about the risks here and there, they've now got so many tens of millions of miles of proof of self-driving being safer than a human. Okay, multiple cameras, multiple sexes. Like, there's no one getting tired, angry, or distracted. Right, the reaction time is faster than a human. So whether you like it or not, and I don't like it, right, it's coming and it's happening, and that's going to have a similar effect on global employment as the invention of cars did on horses. And it's going to come here. It's not going to be just taxis. It's going to be trucks. It's going to be all kinds of stuff. They've actually now got those cars are delivering themselves. They started that a few weeks ago as well. So private owners who bought these new Teslas, the Teslas are delivering themselves from the factory to the buyer's house. That's mad, isn't it? That's really, really mad. Mad Mountain Man says, update, had my survey, which is okay, but now seeing loads of reductions and a few quick sales on similar properties in Budley. That's down in Devon, isn't it? However, the impending doom is making me wary of continuing with my sale. Why, Mad Mountain Man? Is it because you don't want to live there? Is it because you've done it because you think it's a good investment? Or is it just because you're worried that actually, I mean, how long do you want to live there for? If that's a forever home, you should still want to buy it, right? I mean, you might want to consider renegotiating if you think that's relevant. But the rule is that I always say, don't pay more than you're comfortable paying. So if you're now uncomfortable with the price you're paying, you shouldn't continue. You should work out the price you're still comfortable to continue at and renegotiate or walk away. But only if that is the price you really are willing to walk away at. Do not try to renegotiate if you would risk losing out, and then after losing out go, oh, do you know what, I would have paid that price just to be in the home. Don't, to use that horrible expression, throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Don't in trying to save yourself a bit of money end up losing a house that you want. Right, guys, that was just a quick one update for me. I've got to go now, but anyway, lots of ways I can help you. In the description below is a link to my Linktree, and there's a long list of ways in which I can help you, and to my most popular videos on my Linktree link. So check that out. And otherwise, sign up for 5 Fact Fridays newsletter, which is mhwc.co.uk/newsletter, which I'll put on screen. And this week's one is already well under construction. So have a good one. See you on the next one. And just to finalize, I think there is going to be a fairly prolonged house price slide. I think the slide will be steeper and the price drops will be bigger at the top of the market and smaller at the bottom. I think there'll be places in the country where there aren't any price drops and places in the country where there are significant price drops. I think first-time buyers aren't going to see the price drops they're hoping for, but that shouldn't stop you buying anyway.